Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, mommies and daddies, hamsters and gerbils, and manic depressive heavy equipment operators everywhere. DK with Mr. V Amps, and we're looking at a Peavey Bandit 112. They call this the Red Stripe. It's one of the last USA made trans tube amplifiers. It's late at night, but I'm gonna crack into this one because I gotta see what's going on. The owner has said that during a show it cracked out and quit producing sound for a brief moment, and then a day or two later, upon rehearsing at home at a moderate volume, the sound faded out, and that was a problem. Also, we heard something about using the clean versus drive switches over here had produced some pretty grotesque sounds. So, okay, let's kick the tires and light the fires here. Let's see, this is our master for reverb, and that's for presence, and that's what? Power dynamics. Okay, that's probably like a master volume, maybe, I don't know. Let's see, volume. We have vintage and modern on clean. Let's see, low, mid, high. Okay, I just want to make sure our volume isn't cranked to Kingdom Come when I turn this on, so I don't blow my face off. And the other question is, why is there Velcro here? There's like Velcro up there. I don't know what the significance of that is. Okay. I'm not getting any sound out of anything, but I don't exactly have a guitar plugged into it. So let's try plugging a guitar into it and see what happens. Okay, well, our first discovery was, it's making popping sounds now, but I haven't even plugged the guitar in. My first discovery was it wouldn't make any sound, and when it came here the foot switch was plugged into the back. But he mentioned something about it making god-awful noises when switching from regular to lead. But when the foot switch was not plugged in, I had unplugged it, the amp made no sound. I plugged the foot switch in, it made an ugly popping noise, and then began to produce sound through here. So I'm thinking that there is dirt in the foot switch jack, and that would prevent sound from escaping. So there's our clean and dirt channel. We gotta get over on the dirt channel. 3 gain levels. Okay. Okay, there is cutout in this particular pot. Check on the clean side here. There's a little bit of crispies in this one. Okay, so generally it works, which I kind of knew, but when I had the foot switch unplugged initially, it did not work at all. and then I plugged it back in and then unplugged it and it started to work again. So that contact for the foot switch is definitely grubby and dirty. We may need to clean the contacts back there for the effect loop, because the effect loop would definitely cause that, and we should probably give this the tap test to see if there's any solder joints that are failed, and a visual inspection to see if we have anything that's trying to blow up, explode, or leak. But I think this one falls kind of more under the general maintenance category. Alright, let's get the chassis out and have a look. Okay, so we're in down here. This is the back. There's our foot switch jack right there. Now, messing with that is what restored sound for me. And the owner reported some other weird happenings that had to do with switching the channel on the front relative to the foot switch. So I think there's a lot going on there. I should probably double check that that foot switch is very well soldered down. That sounds important to me. And also clean those contacts really good. And then I want to clean all of the pots there, which will be a matter of detaching that green board to do so. So we'll flip this over. I'm going to see how good the solder joints look, and we're going to clean that up really good. I don't love pulling the boards on these, but if it gets me where I gotta go, I think we'll do that. Okay, so there's a whole lot of thermal paste there that wicks heat down to the chassis. This board is not nearly as crazy robust as the ones that I remember on some of the more vintage amps. This is our foot switch way down here, and the solder joints don't look perfect. They look a little weird, but that doesn't mean they're bad. It's kind of hard to say, but for safety's sake, I'm going to reflow the solder joints on these jacks, and then I'm going to thoroughly clean these jacks, and then I think we're going to be okay on this board. The soldering doesn't look tremendously bad, but it's small. You know, this is copyright 1999 Peavey rather than 1985 Peavey that we sort of love and joke that it's indestructible. And again, I don't necessarily see that these joints are necessarily bad. They might be, but I don't feel like getting a microscope out. But I know the foot switch was acting up, so we're going to clean it, make sure it's got good contact and springiness, and touch up the solder. That way, if there is a hairline crack in there, it's fixed whether I saw it or not. The reason I put the jack in there first is I wanted to make sure that I got contact cleaner, because these are spring loaded and they have to lay back down. And then usually I'll spray a little bit on my connector and in the connector, and then just work it a little bit. Sorry, I'm right-handed. and blocking your view. But you get the idea. These 3 spring-loaded connectors on a cliff jack need to be making good contact to these when the jack is out, and so we made sure we touched up the solder, and now we're trying to get good solid contact cleaner in there just to make sure that any corrosion that may have developed over, oh, you know what, how old is this amp? 20 years? Any corrosion that may have developed over the last 18 to 20 years is gone. Okay, so I've completed the maintenance on the power amp board. Now we're going to proceed to do the maintenance on the preamp board. There's a weird quantity of shmoo underneath these caps, so we'll take a little bit of toothbrush and cleaner to these. But a couple of these switches had a little bit of crackly in them, and obviously we had some shmoo in the foot switch jack, if nothing else back there. So we'll probably do the same thing here. We're going to put cleaner in all the pots and all the switches, work them, clean the physical dirt off of it, and possibly touch up any solder connections to the pots here that may look questionable. And what looks questionable, well, that's just up to me. If you were doing this amp, I would let you pick what's questionable. But I'm looking for things that either look like they didn't have enough solder, or that may have had a little sparking arcing on them because they were, you know, because the solder was cracked, which, and preamp section's so low voltage, I'm not looking for sparkies and arkies so much, but just look at any solder connection that I don't think is the pinnacle of modern engineering. And I know this was still one of the last of the pride of meridians, but this, even so, Peavey was working to be cost competitive, and although I don't think this amp was a piece of junk, you can see that they were lightening the manufacturing cost. Okay, so I've cleaned all of the pots on and the jacks and the switches on the front board using the Max Pro products, which I think work well and don't cost too much. That's why we like them. And there's quite a bit of shmoo here. The whole process, I would think, was generally unremarkable. By that I mean, while I was in there tidying up and lubricating pots and turning them back and forth and all of that stuff, I didn't see anything that had a terrible bad solder joint or was particularly badly done. In fact, the way that the pots are soldered to the board, and the fact that the board is completely and totally through hole, actually lends it to be fairly service technician friendly. You know, this is an entirely through hole board, which is nice, and the pots, they're mounted well. There are 4 leads and then that go to the board, and then there are 2 very strong mounts that go on there. And it seems to me that whoever engineered this cared, you know. Obviously we know that the cost-cutting monster was lurking around, leaning over the engineer's shoulders. I don't think we have to pretend that that wasn't the case, but at the same time I think the engineers working within what they were working with didn't do half bad job. So I've got the general maintenance, which general maintenance would be cleaning pots and jacks and switches, done on both the front and the back halves of the amp here. So we're going to reassemble it, fire it up, and see if it does anything bad. I think that pretty much all of our technical difficulty. And then our battery died. Okay, well, it's the next day. So I have cleaned all of these switches and whatnot on the back there and the jacks, and I have cleaned all the pots on the front here. I really think the cutout had to do with the foot switch. That's what caused the weird cutout behavior for me here in the shop. And we're going to run it for a good spell and see if it behaves itself. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, then we'll deal with it some more. Okay, so the amp is actually working, but the foot switch doesn't appear to work at all. So it could be the foot switch, it could be the switching circuit in there. I think they use the electronic, you know, metal oxide semiconductor type whatever, but that's, you can't get any simpler of a foot switch than that, right? So let's check a few things here. Okay, and there's our meter. That switch is currently open. Give it a click. It should be closed. It ain't. Click it again. No. Oh, there, it's finally closed. It took like 4 clicks to get closed. Now it should be open. Now it should be closed. Okay, so that one is kind of working now. This one is closed. Now it's open. Now it doesn't know what the frick it's doing. I think this thing's dirty. Okay, now it's closed. So let's shoot some magic shmoo inside of there if we can. Try to get it in the switch any way you can. Hit the button 4 million times. Try to get a little bit down the chute here. These are like carling switches. These things are usually tough as nails. So I just got a message back from the owner. I told him his amp was working and the weirdness that I was getting was foot switch related. Okay, that one already seems better. On, off, on. I asked him if this was the original foot switch for it. It's supposed to be compatible according to Peavey's website. Alright, so that seems to be okay down there. Now let's check this end. This is a little loose. Let's see what we got here. This is, you know, standard tip ring sleeve connector. That looks to be soldered properly. This one lead looks a little close to ground. Let's move that a little bit. Now I'm happier. That one. Let's check its operation with our beepy meter here. Let's see, so ring to tip. Got nothing. But that's probably because one of these two switches is open, so give that a click. Okay, so ring to tip's okay now. And let's try that again. That shuts that up. And let's try sleeve to tip, or I'm sorry, sleeve to ring. Okay, that's currently off. Now it's on, now it's off, so that seems to work. Let's plug this into the amp and see what the amp does now. Okay, so we've got our Peavey amp fixed, it's being good. The foot switch buttons are according to this. Now, the first button here, which is select, is channel select, and it will only switch channels if you have the channel select up in the lead position. There's our clean channel. And I do have the reverb turned on a little bit. And then the second button here, effects, will turn on and off the effects loop. So I've put in a very obvious delay pedal in here. So that's working properly. And then we can go to our drive channel. And then we can put in our effects loop here or whatever. So, and then we're back to our clean channel again, so. So yeah, everything's working now. I think we're cool. That having a bunch of dirty mess in the foot switch and dirty controls were just mucking up the ability to switch. So just the general maintenance going through this, giving it a good bath, tidying everything up, seems to have gotten the job done. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.